Okay.
We're on
Perek test.
Results. Although Gideon was not officially appointed ruler, the large number of his wives and children, remember we said he had 70 children, indicates that he conducted himself like a king. He maintained a quasi-royal court that enabled him to support his large family. After his death, the leadership could have been divided among his 70 sons. However, Gideon's son Avimelech, by Pilegesh from Shechem, seeks exclusive power in stark contrast to his father. Avimelech exploits his kinship with the people of Shechem and requests from them exclusive rule, effectively demanding royal status. His desire for authority drives the young ruler to massacre his 70 brothers on a single rock. However, one brother, Yotam, manages to escape and go into hiding. From the top of Mount Gerizim, those of you who've been driven by Shechem, you can see Har Gerizim and Har Eval on either side of Shechem, right? One mountain has grass on it, the other it does not. And remember, the whole brachas and klalois that we learned in Sefer Yehoshua occurred on those mountains as well. So from the top of Har Gerizim, Yotam addresses the people of Shechem with a very famous satirical parable, employing imagery of trees and fire, which mocks and curses them and their leader Avimelech. And we will see where that leads. So as you can see, Sefer Shoftim is taking a very dark turn. From the miracle of Gideon to despotism. Vayelech Avimelech ben Yerubal Shechema. Right? Remember, Gideon was given the name Yerubal because he fought with Baal. So Avimelech, the son of Yerubal, goes to Shechem. El Achei Imo. Remember, last week we learned that the Pilegesh that Gideon had was from Shechem. So his mother's family was from there. So the mother's brothers live in Shechem. He speaks to basically his kinsmen. The Meforshim say that the reason that, so for example, the Minchas Ketana says, Lemala yiches abonim l'shem Gideon. Right, when we talked about the 70 children, they were Bnei Gideon. But now, Avimelech is meyuchas after Yerubal. Ki hu haya noteh achrei Baal. V'chein natnu lo shivim kesh, right? Avimelech was a Baal worshiper. And so were the people of Shechem. So by calling himself the son of Yerubal, it wasn't meant to remind them that, his father had fought with the Baal, just the opposite. It was meant to give them a hint, I'm one of you. So he says, Dabru na boznei kol balei Shechem. He tells his family, speak to the other Shechemites. Matov lachem. Amshol bachem shivim ish. What's better for you? You want to be ruled over 70 different people? Kol bnei Yerubal? If just one of the sons, meaning himself, would be the ruler. And what's the reason? Remember, if I'm the king, you are my kinsman. So he's trying to convince them why it's a good idea for them to back him as king. Vaydabru achei imo alav boznei kol balei Shechem et kol adrim ha'eleh. And in fact, his family went out and promoted Avimelech. Vayet libam achrei Avimelech and they convinced the townspeople, Kiamru Achinu, and because they said he's our family. Vayitnu lo shivim kesef mi Beit Baal Brit. The Beit Baal Brit was a Mokum Avodah Zarah, was a place where they worshiped Baal. And he got money from there. 70 coin for the 70 brothers he was going to kill. With the money, Vayiskor bayam Avimelech anashim rekim upochazim. Rashi says, Behulim masayim lasot belotvuna. These were wild people who did things without thinking. From the word pachas kamayim, right? Yaakov Avinu, when he gives a bracha to Ruvain, he says pachas. He was quick in his action. It means without thinking. When he moved the mita of Bilhah, because it was an affront to his mother Leah. We just had that last week's parsha. Vayelchu acharav, and these evildoers followed him. Vayavo Beit Aviv Afrata. Now remember, Gidon lived in Ophrah. So he went to Ophrah. Vayarog et Echav bnei Yerubal, Shivim ish 11 echad. He killed his brothers, 70 of his half-brothers, on one stone. Vayivater Yotam ben Yerubal hakaton kinechpa. The youngest, Yotam, he escaped because he hid. By the way, the Musar Nevi'im says, "Mitnei ma'al selo legidon shener one of." Why did it happen to Gidon that his 70 sons were killed? The Ralbag explains, "Ki shelo kahogen asa ma shehayu lo nashim rabot, v'od lakach lo gam pilegesh." The Ralbag sees a problem that he took so many wives, and that he also had to have a pilegesh. Ki lekichata pilegesh hayta siba larigat banav. Ki bera pilegesh emitam. It was Avimelech, the son of the Pilegesh, that killed him. So the Ralbag sees that the Torah is pointing to that as the cause for this.
How far away are we from the Avimelech in the time of Rus? Right? Wasn't it Avimelech?
No, I mean Elimelech. That's Elimelech.
Not Avimelech?
No, Avimelech is Avram. Is Avram.
Avram. There wasn't Avimelech.
Of course, it was an Avimelech, and we'll see. This it's the same. But Avimelech is the Shechemites. Here, I want to read something here. I'm reading from, again, Rabbi Hatton. The important city of Shechem is 50 kilometers north of Jerusalem in the tribal territory of Manasseh. It was not settled by Israelites only, but was populated by indigenous Canaanim who came from the Chivi. These non-Israelite inhabitants of Shechem were not hostile to their Israelite neighbors. Throughout the lengthy account of the conquest and settlement of the land preserved in the book of Yoshua, there's no mention of the city of Shechem in any context of combat. They did not join the Canaanite confederacies of city-states that unsuccessfully battled against the Israelite armies, nor is there any record in the book of an Israelite conquest of their territory. On the other hand, we do find that Yoshua's inspirational and parting address to the people of Israel was delivered at Shechem. It therefore seems plausible that the Canaanite people of Shechem, perhaps still recalling the stinging defeat inflicted upon them by the sons of Jacob centuries earlier, which we just read in this week's Parsha, Shimon and Levi wiping out Hamor and Shechem because they raped Dinah. So maybe these Canaanites learned a lesson and they decided that a neutral stance towards the returning Israelites would be in their best interest. And thus was born this tradition of accommodation. Now, Avimelech, Sydney, remember, Avimelech gave himself that name. We learned it last week where it says, he made his name Avimelech because he wanted to continue the dynastic rule that the people wanted to give to Gidon. Gidon didn't want it, but Avimelech basically called himself my father, the king.
It says Vayosem Eshemo Avimelech.
Vayasem, wait, so that usually we say Vayikra Shmo.
Right.
So generally in the Tanakh, when names are given to children, the term Vayikra, right?
Right.
And not that he made it, right? Here it says he made it.
Right.
Avimelech himself indicates that at some point, the ambitious lad renounced his birth name and instead adopted a moniker that was more in keeping with his future ambitions.
I mean, none of these had Jewish mothers, right? None of the sons,
Correct.
including Yotam too.
No, the other ones had Jewish mothers.
They did? Okay.
Yeah, just Avimelech didn't, because the Pilegesh came from Shechem.
By the way, I'm interrupting you for a minute for a bulletin.
Yes.
Baruch Tad Emes, but really Baruch Tad Emes, Khamenei died. Ayatollah Khamenei just died.
Oh, okay.
Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. Baruch Hashem is right. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
okay.
Yes, you can say good Baruch
Sonei
Hashem.
Israel. How do you say, so go the way of all people who hate Israel?
What did he die of, Sydney? Corona?
Yeah.
Huh?
No, they had machine guns shoot him down.
Maybe they chapped the Mechola at least.
Yeah. He already gave, I think, a Yerush to his son already.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Ronnie?
I'm here, right? Can you see me?
Okay, let's go weiter.
Okay. So Pasuk Vav. Vayasfu kol balei Shechem v'chol Beit Milo. Beit Milo is a special structure elevated by port.
Yes, ooh. I can go get my own.
I'll lose your plate now.
So Beit
Yeah,
Milo.
it's full there. Vav. Yeah.
Vayalchu vayamlichu et Avimelech lemelech. So the Shechemites anointed him as king. Im elon mutzav asher b'Shechem.
A lot of Tanakh in here.
There was a monument in the plain of Shechem. Rashi says, Mishor shahayu bo matzevot. Vayagidu li Yotam. So Yotam, the remaining brother, is told, Vayelech vayamod b'rosh ha'grizim. He stands and gives a public address from the top of ha'grizim. Vayisa kolo vayikra. Vayomer lahem shimu elai balei Shechem vayishma lechem Elohim. Listen to me, balei Shechem. Haloch halchu ha'etzim. He starts a mashal. What if the trees went limshach alei melech? And they wanted to have a king rule over them. Let's just read the mashal, and then we'll go back and analyze it. Vayomru lazayit malkalenu. They go first to the olive and says, "You rule over us." Vayomer lehem hazayit. The zayit says, "Hechdalti es dishni asher bi chabdu Elohim v'anashim."
You have to catch up.
I give up the products, right? What shemen is made from me, and this is used to honor Hashem. Valachti lanu alai etzim, and I should just wave over the trees. It's not appropriate. So vayomru etzim lateina. So the trees said to the fig, "L'chiat malki aleinu, you go and rule over us." V'tomer lehem lateina, the fig responds, "Echdalti et matki vet nuvataya tova." The sweetness and and the tenuva that I give, Valachti lanu alai etzim. Right, the teina gives honey. Vayomru hayetzim lagefen. They go to the vine. And l'chiat malki aleinu, you rule over us. V'tomer lem hagefen echdalti et tiroshi. This, should I stop? The tirosh means wine. Hamisamech elokim v'nashim, that makes Hashem happy, because the Levim, Rashi says, the Shir Shel Yom is recited by the Levim when they pour the yayin. Nesachim, every time a korban was offered, it was offered with a mincha of flour and wine. So first of all, it's misamech the hearts of humans as well as Hashem. Valachti lanu ala eitzim. Now you notice all of a sudden, vayomru kol ha'eitzim. Previously we just said ha'eitzim, which implies some of the trees. Now it says kol ha'eitzim el ha'atad. So there's a debate what atad is, but it's basically like a thorn bush. Lechatam loch aleinu. Again, this is your tam speaking out this marshal. Vayomer ha'atad el ha'eitzim. So the thorn bush says, Im be'emet atem moshchim oti lemelech aleichem, if you indeed appoint me your melech, bo chasu b'tzili, come and I will cover you in my shade. V'im ayin, and if you're not sincere about that, and you really don't want me, teitzei eish min ha'atad, let a fire come out of the thorn, v'tochalat arzel vanon, and that fire will destroy even the cedars of Lebanon. Comes the Nimshal, comes Yotam, and he says, Va'ata, now, im be'emetu v'tamim asitem. And if you are true about what you want to do, v'tamlichu et Avimelech, and you appoint Avimelech over you, v'im tova asitem im yubal v'im beito, v'im kigmul yadav asitem lo. Is this the tova you are returning to Gidon and his house for all the good he did for Klal Yisrael? Asher nilcham avi aleichem, that my father fought for you. Vayashlechet nafsho mineged, he gave his life. Vayatzel etchem miyad Midyan, and he saved you from Midyan. Ve'atem kamtem al beit avi hayom, and now you are joining with this evil doer Avimelech. Vatargu et banav, who killed all of Gidon's sons, shivim ish eleven achas. Vatamlichut Avimelech ben Amato, the son of the servant, al balei Shem ki achichem hu, because he is of your kin. V'im be'emetu v'tamim asitem im yirubal v'beito yom hazeh, simchu ba'Avimelech v'yismach kamu bachem. If you think you've done well with Gidon and his household, be happy with Avimelech. But v'yimayin, if you realize that it's not correct that you went with Avimelech, teitzei eish ba'Avimelech, fire will come out of Avimelech v'tochalit balei Shem et beit Milo, and fire will come out and will destroy you and the fortress. But teitzei eish ba'balei Shem et beit Milo v'tochalit Avimelech will also destroy Avimelech. And we're going to come back. Vayanas Yotam. Yotam ran away. Vayivrach vayelech be'era. He went to Be'era. Vayeshev sham mipnei Avimelech achiv. Vayasher Avimelech al Yisrael shalosh shanim. Let's see where this story takes us first. Avimelech ruled for 3 years. Vayishlach Elohim ruach ra'ah ben Avimelech u'ben balei Shem. Hashem created ill will between Avimelech and the people of Shem. Vayivigedu balei Shem b'Avimelech, and they turned against Avimelech. Lavo Hamas shivim b'nei Yisrael. Lavo Hamas shivim b'nei Yerubal. This is because evil was done to the 70 sons of Yerubal. V'damam lasum al Avimelech achiyam asher haragotav v'balei Shem asher chizgu et yadav l'roget achav. Really, blood is on the heads of both Avimelech and the people of Shem. The people of Shem are the ones who gave him support, gave him money for him to hire the people who ended up killing the 70. Vayasimu lo balei Shechem ma'arvim. So the people of Shechem set out an ambush around the hills of Shechem al Roshei Arim vayigzelu et kol asher yavor aliyam badarech. And they were stealing everything that I guess was trying to feed Avimelech. Vayavog Gaal ben Eved ve'achav. So a person, Gaal ben Eved, came. He was passing by Bishchem. Vayiftechu vo balei Shechem. He got the trust of some of the people in Shechem. Vayetzu hasadeh vayivsu et karmeim vayidrechu. They went out and harvested their vineyards. Vayasu ilulim. Vayavo beit Elohem vaychlu vayishtu vaykalus Avimelech. They brought offerings to their avodah zarah and they cursed Avimelech. Vayomer Gaal ben Eved mi Avimelech umishchem ki navdenu. Who is this Avimelech that we should serve him? Halo ven Yerubal uzvul pikido. Then he's ben Yerubal and Zvul is officer. Ivdu et anshe chamor avishchem umadua na'avdenu anachnu. Isn't he the son of Yerubal, who was a foreigner who fought against the Baal? We shouldn't subjugate ourselves to Avimelech. Now, Zvul was the official
Bernie lost all his hair.
that Avimelech appointed to rule while he was not there. Rather, says Gaal, you should serve the descendants of Chamor, right? The father of Shechem. We allow our allegiance should be with our own people. Why should we serve Avimelech, who's only a partial Shechemite? So that's the connection to the old Hamor and
Avimelech
Shechem.
David's son?
No, this is before. I don't know.
Umi
Uh-huh.
yitein et ha'am hazeh biyadi,
Huh?
No.
v'asir et Avimelech. Vayomer Avimelech rabetz v'achav atzeah.
This is before.
Basically, Gal is saying, put your power in me. I will wage war against Avimelech and dethrone him. And he basically challenged Avimelech to raise his army and come out to fight him. And that was a common way of doing battle. You would invite your enemy and you would stage a battle.
So Shechem was a mixed city. It was a city that had people who were Chivi, descended from Chivi,
Yes.
and Jews.
Yes, I read an introduction. I read that introduction that Shechem seemed to be a city that had not been conquered in the times of Yoshua and remained. They somehow made treaties with, just like Shechem and Hamor made a treaty. That's what Rabbi Hatton wants to say. It seems that they continued in that tradition.
Do we have an idea of, was it mainly a city of Chivi, or was it mainly a city of Jews?
It was mixed. It was mixed, like I read. It was mixed.
Right.
You see? There were non-Israelite inhabitants, there was Israelite inhabitants. But they had made an accommodation with the Jews, the way they made in the time of Hamor and Shechem. So, by Shema Zvul, Zvul is the officer that Avimelech has put in charge of Shechem. He heard what this Gal ben Aved is trying to incite the people of Shechem to fight against Avimelech, Vayicharapo. And Zvul gets angry. So Vayishlach Malachim el Avimelech b'Torma lemor. He sends a message to Avimelech, who was in Torma. Excuse me. Hinei Gal ben Eved. He says this guy Gal ben Eved ve'echav b'im Shechem avinam tsarim et ir alecha, and he's fomenting revolution against you. Ve'ata kum laila, come at night. Ata ve'am asher itach va'erov basad. Then you put an ambush in the field. Vayav aboker kizroach hashemesh, in the morning tashkim ufashatat la'ir Come in the morning, you shall spread on the city. Gaal and his people with him will come out to you. And you will do what you know you have to do. So they got up, they set an ambush, Arba Roshim. He was again following his father, 4 different sort of encampments. Vayitze Gaal ben Eved vayamod petach shar ha'ir. Gaal went out to the gate. Vayakam Avimelech v'amasher yitom namarav. The ambush got up. Vayar Gaal ta'am vayormel Zvul. He told Zvul, Ineam Yored Moshe Arim Yormel Lav Zvul et Sele Arima Taroek Kanashim. You know, these are not people. This is just the shadow of the mountain. Vayosefot Gaal daber vayormel Hine am Yordim mi'im tabor haaretz. The people are coming from like the middle of the ground, very close to us. Where is the mouth that you had, Mi Avimelech Kinavdenu, where you said, who is Avimelech that we should serve him? This people that are coming at you now, this is the people that you were making fun of. Say na atavilachem, go out and fight them. Gal went out and fought with Avimelech, but Vayidefer Avimelech, Vayanas mipanav, Gal had to run away. Vayiplu chalalim rabim ad petach hashar. Many casualties fell at the gate. Vayeshev Avimelech baruma, Vayigarish Zvul Gal v'dachad mishevet b'Shechem. Zvul Avimelech's officer chased Gal out of the city. Vahimi macharat vayitzei hamasadeh vayagidu l'Avimelech. More people came out of the city. Avimelech wasn't sure, is this a continuation of the war? So vayikach ha'am vayichetzem l'shlosha rashim. He again divided up 3 parties. Vayerov basadeh, and set up an ambush. He again destroyed them. They went into the fields and destroyed. And then Avimelech Dilchambe went into the city. He destroyed the whole city and he plowed it under in salt. Pasuk Memvav, Vayishmu kol balei migdal Shechem. There was a tower in Shechem. And I guess the remainder went to hide there. Vayavo el tzriach Beit El Brit. Beit El Brit is another Mokum Avodah Zarah. People are trying to hide there. Vayugad l'Avimelech ki kapsu kol balei migdal Shechem. They're gathered there. They took axes. They cut down wood. They carried it on their shoulders. Like what you see I did, you do. They all cut trees. They lit fire. 1,000 men and women were burnt in this tower. Again, the mashal is coming true. Yotam said that a fire is going to come to consume the people of Shechem. And then he said that eventually Avimelech is going to be consumed himself. Let's see how that's fulfilled. Vayelech Avimelech el Tevetz. Tevetz with another fortress city that he besieged. Vayichan b'Tevetz vayil kedah. Umigdal Oz, there was a powerful tower. Hayab b'toch ha'ir vayanusu shama kol anashim anashim. The men and women ran there. V'chobal ha'ir vayizgru b'adam vayalu al gaga migdal. He went up to the roof. Vayavo Avimelech ad migdal vayilachem bo. Avimelech tried to fight with the tower. Vayigash ad petach hamigdal sarfo ba'esh. He came close again to burn it like he burned the other one in Shechem. Vatashlech isha achat pelach rechev al rosh Avimelech. A woman who was on the roof threw down a millstone, right?
Millstone.
A stone that's used to grind wheat.
Mhm.
And vataratz et gugaltan, shattered his skull. But he wasn't dead yet. Vayikra me'ira lanar nosei kelav. He called to his armor carrier. You know, a warrior would have somebody carrying his weapons. Vayomer lo shlof char b'cha motaten. He said, take your sword and kill me. Pen yomruli ishaharantu. Otherwise, they will say that a woman killed me. Vayit kareu na'aro vayamot. And this weapons carrier stabbed
Seems
him.
like this happened often.
We're going to see. This happens by Shaul HaMelech.
Right. It happened a few times.
Vayiru ish Yisrael kimet Avimelech, vayelchu ish limkomo. Everyone back home. Vayashav Elohim et ra'at Avimelech, asher asa la'aviv la'rogat shivi mechav. So Hashem returned the evil that Avimelech had done
Mhm.
to his father and to his brothers. That called Rat Anshe Shechem, Heshiv Aleim Barosham, and the people of Shechem got a revenge. Vatavo Aleim Kilat Yotam ben Yerubal, and the
Curse.
curse came true. Now, I'd like to read a medrash about Medrash Tanchuma about the Eitzim. Hitchil Amar Haloch al Choa Eitzim. Orav Nashe, Moshe Le Madram Alalu. Haloch al Choa Eitzim El Yisrael. The Eitzim are the Jewish people. V'amru Zayit, they told the Zayit first, Zatniel ben Knaz. Remember the first shofet, Shahaya Mishevet Yudah. It says in Yirmiyah, Zayit Ra'anan Yafeh Pri Tor, Karei Hashem Shmecha. So Yehuda is referred to as Zayit. Uma Amalu Atnielech Dalti as Dishni Alchu. It means I'm not worthy to be king. Halchu Eitzel Dvora. Vayomru Te'ena Malki Aleinu. So the Te'ena is a reference to Dvora. And she also says, Ich dalti et mitkai v'tosha Dvora. Vayomer la gafen ze Gidon, Meshol banu, gamata. And he also refused. Lo im shalani bachem. Vayomru haitzim le'mor lecha ta melech aleinu zevi melech. Kishem atad, the thorn is ilan srak v'kalu kotzim, kach Avimelech lo hayu lo masim tov. Avimelech, they also didn't have maisim tovim. I'm going to read the Musar Nevi'im. Ki adheina od la ya melech b'Yisrael ki ma shoftim bilvad. We're in the period of time where there are no kings, there's only shoftim. V'ashoftim lo hayu manchilim et gedulatam livnei machreim. We find no evidence that any of the shoftim left over their children to take their place. Uvemet ritzona am haya lasot et elu hashloshah menuyim kan lemlochim. The Medrash is telling us that in these three instances, by Otniel, by Dvor and Gidon, the people wanted them to become king. Achem lo kiblu aleihem. V'rak harishon shenit manala melech haya rotzeach Avimelech. Really, the first one who became a king is Avimelech, who's a rotzeach. Ulvasof nichvu b'kal. He burnt himself in his own coals. He was just like a thorn that we used to start a fire. Its whole thing was creating fire. Each time when they went around looking for a king, it wasn't all of them. Nira Lomar, When Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Vatikruvun elai kulchem, vatomru nishlachan akim lefanenu v'yachpru et haaretz," when he talks about the Meraglim, he says, "All of you came, kulchem bi'irbuvia," because you were in a panic. Later on in Dvarim Hey, he says, "Vatikruvun elai kol roshei shivtechem v'ziknechem." No, it was only the leaders who came. L'yiladim mechatin et askenim, uskenim mechatin et haroshim. V'kan birvyu yiladim dochvut et azkenim, uskenim dochvut haroshim. V'chein kan, mitchila shekashalchu livchor b'mishu agun. It means when the people tried to anoint, let's say, Atniel or Dvorah, it was just the leaders among the people. That's why it says ha'etzim, the Gdolim Shebahem. But when they went to do Avimelech, then it's called ha'etzim because it's bi'irbuvia. They don't have time to think, and that's why they didn't choose right. That's just, I think, an interesting shot of the Musar Nevi'im.
What happened to Yotam? We don't have anything, an ending for him, do we? He just ran away.
He ran away, but he was not killed.
Because isn't that a name of a king somewhere? Was Yotam a king?
Yeah,
Is it him or a different one?
it's a different one. It's one of the one of the Malchei Beis David.
Right.
What do we know that was going on in the rest of Eretz Yisrael at the same time? Or we're just talking about a small geographical area here.
Around Shechem.
Right. So what was happening around the rest of Eretz Yisrael?
Doesn't seem that Avimelech affected them. So he certainly was not a national king. He's just a king around Shechem, and he just ruled for 3 years. And it doesn't seem like he had much of an impact on the rest of Klal Yisrael.
So what is the significance of this whole parsha here?
Okay, so good.
It's a tough question.
So I want to say that I want to answer Ellen the following way. So first of all, again, I'm reading from Rabbi Hattin. First of all, his analysis of Yotam's mashal. While the other trees that were asked to become king are all productive members of the landscape, yielding delectable fruit and useful byproducts, the bramble yields but thorns. It's a source of neither shade or produce. If anything, the bramble constitutes a threat to its surroundings, for not only do its sharp thorns harm any who venture too close, but its dried leaves can spread destruction far and wide when they are ignited. So too Avimelech, explains Yotam, though he lacks any constructive and useful qualifications to become a good king and leader, he has seized the vacant position by force. Although he promises to protect those who have been persuaded to appoint him, in the end he will destroy them and himself with his self-centered recklessness. So Ellen, I think we learn some of the pitfalls of monarchy.
Mhm.
The first attempt in Israel to establish some sort of dynastic rule failed completely. The narrative is decidedly unsympathetic to any of the protagonists mentioned in the chapter, except for Yotam. Even the other ones, Gaal, son of Eved, and Zvul, are rogues of the first order. The former, an inebriated malcontent who doesn't offer any palliative reforms to counter Avimelech. And Zvul was just a crony in the first degree. And the oppressed governors and people of Shechem, idol worshippers all, who initially were willing to support Avimelech's murderous bid for the throne, we don't have any pity for them either. As a whole, this chapter serves as a severe caution, providing us with a profile of the anti-ruler, who must not be empowered even when the people are justifiably desperate for leadership. The anti-ruler candidate possesses a lust of power that should immediately be regarded with suspicion and alarm. He is often inspired with a healthy dose of paranoia and thinks nothing of brutally extirpating any and all who oppose him. He may possess cunning, charisma, and capability, but he has absolutely no sense of a higher purpose and no regard for the larger good. He acts for his own advantage and views the world through the narrow prism of greed and self-gain. So in short, the chapter indicates no judge at all is preferable to the anti-judge. For though the latter appears to alleviate social and political chaos in the short term, his narcissistic policies tend to propagate it in the long term. Which I think is, these are some of the lessons that we've learned from this parak.
Wasn't Shaul also paranoid? You're always thinking that,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So we're going to have to see, even when we get into, God willing, we'll get into Malachim, we'll see the same trend. I think the lessons we're learning about the despotism of Malchus, how Malchus can descend into despotism, we're beginning to get glimpses of it and foreshadowing of it, but it's going to come back. The Malbim has a has another approach to the mashal, which I encourage people to go through. First, he talks about the Zakanim, then he talks about wealthy people, then he talks about middle people. So he has his own, maybe business people. So he has his own shot on who are the three people who try to come with opportunity for kingship. I will remind some of the people here, Rabbi Bronner, is Temi is still. Rabbi Bronner, I always had discussions with him that.
Esti is also listening, by the way.
Good. Discussions with him about Malchus, he would always quote the Abarbanel, because the Abarbanel lived in a time where Venice, the Venetian states were beginning to dabble in democracy, and that they had some type of republic. And the Abarbanel talks about Malchus, of course, the Rambam seems to discuss Melech HaMashiach like regular Malchus. But there is a Shita, and I think it's pushed very much by the Abarbanel, that Malchus is not going to be necessarily kingship, that it could be a republic, that it could be democratic norms could also eventually be the way Malchus is. It would be great to have him, discuss this issue, because I remember he always would discuss this. He would point out that there are a lot of defects to the Malchus that we're seeing, that we are exposed to throughout Tanakh. And it's not necessarily that Malchus in the future will be the same Malchus as we saw then. We see some foreshadowings of that. Esti or Temi, do you remember your father discussing that issue?
No.
He gave a shear on that all the time about the Shita of the Rambam.
Yeah, the
the
Rambam,
Rambam, yeah.
that a republic and democratic values could also fall under the rubric of Malchus.
Absolutely. He gave that shear a lot.
Okay, so
May I give another interesting perspective? I'm
please,
noticing
please.
through Yoshua and Shoftim that on multiple occasions, a woman stepped up to do a vital role as a supporting actress. We started with Rachav Azona, then the Yael, and now we have Isha, the Migdal Oz. I'm sure there may have been one or two other incidents, but these are, and they basically saved Bnei Israel from either oppression or from a bad ruler. This is the third example that I can recall.
I think it's a very good point, Bernie.
Let's hear his commentary.
I think it's a very good point. You could see
Were you talking about the woman who threw the
the
thing on
woman
his head?
the woman who killed him.
The unidentified woman,
Isha Migdalos.
Isha Achas.
So the Minchas Ketana says, Bernie, Batashlech Isha, Hine Hashem danoto b'midah, ki hu ragechav mashehu neged hateva. Right, the way he killed his brothers was also negative. Gam hu ne'erag al yedei isha.
Right.
Normally, a woman has mercy. Yedei nashim rachmaniot. So when you end up with just the opposite of teva.
I think the whole chapter is really questioned. What's going on? It's a weird chapter. What does it tell you all this?
I
a kill-
think
It's a killing
I
chapter.
the point to warn us off of Malchus, and that's why later on when they come to Shmuel, he's going to give them heck, and so
Yes.
we're seeing four warnings of that.
And then you have Malachim Aleph and Malachim Beis after that too.
Well, first we have Shmuel Aleph and Beis.
Yeah, but because remember, Sydney, the Rambam in giving you the mitzvah of Binyan Beis HaMikdash says you need three things first. You need Minui Melech, then you need Mechias HaMolek, and then you have Binyan Beis HaBechira. And it has to go in that order. So even though apparently we were not supposed to request a king, but it seems like it was foreordained that we needed a king. Without a king, we couldn't build the Beis HaMikdash. So that part is puzzling. There's all this stuff and we only had two good kings, David and David and Shlomo. And already Shlomo's son Rechavam, and already the Melucha split. So we had 80 years of good king. Then we had intermittent years of Chizkiah Melech and Yoshio Melech, but in terms of the 80 consecutive years, that's what we had.
Maybe the parak is trying to tell us this Mida Keneged Mida. If somebody rises to become king, but is an evil king, eventually he'll get punished just as he's punished as he tried to rise above all his 70 other brothers. It's not a license to kill.
But anyways, I think we're all part of going through this. We were shocked last week when Gidon comes to Pnuel, which is a Jewish city, and he wipes out the Jewish city. So we see also in this parak, a lot of, it almost sounds Shakespearean, right? Richard III killing his brother. I mean, right? This is part of our history as well, where, he killed out 70 of his brothers. And I mean, we have this lurid, very evil history lurking in our background as well. Is that what, Sydney, is that what bothering you about this parak?
Yeah, I mean, it's not bothering me. Just like it's not just this parak. I'm sure there's a lot more coming too.
So let me ask you another question. You've always remarked to me that in the yeshivas they didn't learn Navi.
No, none of this.
Right. So you see why. We can understand why.
Of course.
Because it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. But wait till we get to Shimshon. Okay.
Okay,
Have a great
Shkoyach.
week, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Having next week, the Hanukkah?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Ask him, I don't know.
He's off the phone already.